5:30 now, but we're not here as far as everyone here. Hello. Snacking up.
I opened with a joke last time. No, I'm going to take a night off on the jokes tonight, and next week I'm going to have a police or fire joke. And I'm not going to give it up which it's going to be. So I'm sorry to let that.
No, when is police and fire?
Next week, or 2 weeks. Next week. Tuesday, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, on the 30th is what I have marked down. November 30th.
Good evening. Today we are having our budget session with the Public Works team. Good evening, Chuck Zisk and AJ Antelik and Renee Lamus. Paul Lichtenwater, thank you for your presentation that you will begin with at this time.
Okay. Three of the handouts tonight. The first being as we handed out the enterprise or the expenditures for the general fund tonight, we handed out the enterprise fund expenditures. And I did the same thing as last time. That's that one. Just a highlight overview of the personnel benefits for each one of the departments: sewer, refuse, and it's on, and golf. And then the second handout, I wrote some notes again, so everybody, as we're going through departments, Chuck wants to go through department by department and talk about his department. There's some notes on, changes in FTEs and changes in spending patterns, that type of thing. And then the last handout, the very first page of that, and Kim's going to put it up on the screen. We're opening with summer rec, which I know is going to be about the 5th department we actually talk about. But anything like some of the things in the handout book that you've seen in the past, you're going to see up on the screen as we get into different departments. I'm going to show you some flow data for the sewer fund, just that kind of stuff. So there you go. So I'm going to let Chuck take it away from there, and he's got a couple of things he wants to go over.
Thank you, Paul. Just a brief introduction of Public Works. The Department of Public Works has 220 full-time employees. Throughout any calendar year, the number of total employees will be over 300 when including part-time workers. In 2021, the Public Works overall budget, including enterprise funds, was $53,149,674. In the proposed 2022 budget, the Public Works overall budget is $53,837,317. Department of Public Works oversees engineering, streets, parks, building maintenance, the municipal garage, special events, the wastewater treatment plant, sewer collection, refuse, recycling, golf, and potentially a stormwater fund. Public Works affects all citizens of Erie's lives on a daily basis, whether you're driving your car, enjoying a park, recycling plastics, using the restroom, or crossing the street. Erie residents experience Public Works most often without even realizing the services that we provide. Most of our work occurs behind the scenes. There are times, oh, that's fine. Okay. There are times when our work is on full display, whether it be a stormwater pipe collapse or plowing 7 foot of snow after a major snowstorm. Whatever the task, Public Works aims to complete the necessary work in the highest quality manner. The department prides itself on finding efficiencies, both operational and cost-wise. And I'd like to thank you for having us here tonight. We look forward to reviewing the 2022 budget, discussing some of our 2021 highlights, and looking to the future. If there are any questions throughout the presentation, please stop and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So with that being said, we're going to start with the Office of Director, and that's on page 49 of the 2022 budget book, account 701. The Director of Public Works Office oversees the public works operations, property projects, and parks. In 2020, the Department of Public Works was asked to develop an all-encompassing security and access control plan for City Hall. In 2021, City Hall reopened to the public with enhanced security measures and protocols that are specifically designed to protect visitors, employees, and elected officials alike. The access control portion of the project went live on November 15th of this year, and this signified the final stages of the project that took over 16 months to complete. When you look at the budget, the total director's budget decreased slightly from 224,643 to 222,834 for 2022. The next bureau I'd like to discuss is the Bureau of Engineering, which can be found on page 50. 2021 was an active year for the Bureau of Engineering. Project highlights include emergency relining and replacement of Garrison's Run 96-inch storm sewer at Frontier Lumber, the demolition of the Cockwa Avenue Bridge, replacement of the storm sewer outfall located at the foot of Euclid Avenue. The City of Erie was awarded a grant in the amount of $309,000. It's a federal EPA grant, and that's to install litter traps and sedimentation control devices on Garrison Run, on a different section of Garrison Run. Additionally, the Bureau of Engineering continued project management of all contracted paving work and outside contracted work being done for the City of Erie. In the 2022, the Bureau of Engineering is planning to work on the following projects. We're going to continue the implementation, hopefully, of the Stormwater Utility Fund, the Cockwa Avenue Bridge replacement planning, the $7.25 million Rackby Downtown Streetscape Revitalization Project. And this is going to be starting in the spring. We finally got all the signed contracts and agreements, and I believe you voted on them at the last council session. So those projects could be starting as soon as March or April of this year. And the scope of that work is State Street from 4th to 12th and Holland Street from 4th to 12th. It's going to sidewalks, trees, new lighting, pedestrian upgrades, signal upgrades. So that's going to be a big project in 2022. And also the construction phase of the $3.5 million West 8th Street multimodal project that has already been awarded by PennDOT. That's expected to start as soon as weather breaks in the spring. Also in 2022, the Bureau of Engineering is working through project scopes on some of the critical infrastructure repairs identified and hopefully to be used with ARP funding. We're reviewing the proposal on the Southeast Erie Stormwater Improvement Project, the continued relining and repair of different sections of the Garrison Run stormwater system, the stormwater replacement project on Myrtle Street from West Front to West 5th Street, and a sanitary replacement or slip lining on West 8th Street from Raspberry to Liberty Street. The Bureau also continues to work closely with all the development going on throughout the City of Erie and especially the downtown area. The engineering's budget decreased slightly also in 2022, just by about $1,000. Traffic engineering is the division in the Bureau of Engineering. And traffic engineering also had a very active 2021. The project highlights include they worked with PennDOT on the design of 23 intersections for the West 12th Street signal project. In addition to the new signals, signal timing will be improved. These improvements also include pedestrian and lighting upgrades as well. We completed the Safe Routes to School grant. This was a $1 million grant, which consisted of the installation of signing, sidewalks, countdown pedestrian signals, markings, and school flashers. And the school flashers are actually solar powered. Also completed the Green Lake Go project, which was the installation of a new signal at East Lake Road and Bacon Street. This project increased the safety at the intersection and also the pedestrian crossing on East Lake Road. We've completed design of the 10th and Holland signal upgrade. This project is now ready to be awarded for the spring construction season. Completed the West 8th and Lincoln signal redesign, which is included in the West 8th Street project. And we began the design of 4 intersections for upgrades that will include new controllers, vehicle detection, and pedestrian signals. The anticipated intersection upgrades in 2022 will be at East Lake Road and Franklin Avenue, West 32nd and Green Garden Boulevard, East Lake Road and Gilson, and West 8th Street and Pittsburgh Avenue. For the last several years, the Traffic Engineering Division has converted all of the city-owned street lights to high-efficiency LED lights. In 2022, the focus will shift to the conversion of all City of Erie-owned park lighting to high-efficiency LED. Perry Square and Griswold Park, we've already ordered the lighting, and those lights will be replaced before the end of this year. We've also submitted grant applications for State Street signal upgrades at West 4th, West 3rd, West 2nd. And also we've applied for grant funding for West 8th Street lighting and pedestrian improvements between Sassafras Street and Liberty Street. Over the past 2 years, traffic engineering has replaced old sodium vapor lighting and changed it to high efficiency LED lighting at 451 light fixtures. These light fixtures provide the City of Erie with cost savings, reduced maintenance, and enhanced pedestrian safety. Overall, there are 8,542 light poles throughout the City of Erie. 7,780 of those are owned by Penelec, and the city owns 672. Traffic Engineering's budget saw a slight increase due to the increasing costs of repair and maintenance. Next, I'd like to discuss the Bureau of Streets, which can be found on page 53. During 2021, Public Works renegotiated a new winter maintenance agreement with PennDOT. The new winter maintenance agreement will result in an additional $1.9 million in revenue over the next 10 years. For reference, in 2021, the City of Erie was going to be reimbursed roughly $220,000 for providing winter maintenance of state roads. Under the newly executed agreement, this amount is increasing to roughly $390,000. This reimbursement scale will escalate over the life of the 10-year contract. The Bureau of Streets also conducted over $800,000 worth of in-house paving during 2021. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the most in-house paving we've accomplished over the last 5 or 6 years. Very proud of the work that our employees in the Bureau of Streets do. Paint and Sign is a division of the Bureau of Streets. It maintains the City of Erie street signage, crosswalks, painting, and long line striping. This budget sees a slight increase, and we continue to go out and actively work on these signs and crosswalks. On page 57, the Bureau of Fleet and Maintenance. In 2021, the municipal garage increased labor rates to $80 for car and light truck and $90 for heavy truck. The rate adjustment was in part to the new market demands and increasing internal costs. Each year, the municipal garage conducts a labor study to ensure that the rates charged are in line with general industry rates. Also in 2021, the fuel upcharge increased 10 cents from 25 cents to 35 cents. This increase was a result of improving technology and the software programming at the City of Erie maintenance garage. In 2021, the municipal garage is projected to generate over $1 million for the general fund budget. Fleet maintenance also continues to upgrade fleet tracking and GPS monitoring. These programs are important because they increase efficiencies and decrease operational costs throughout the City of Erie fleet. On page 59, building maintenance. Building maintenance budget increased slightly due to the increasing cost of repair and maintenance. In 2021, building maintenance worked to improve the electrical grid at City Hall. After the downtown power outage in September 2021, Public Works worked with the police department to improve power redundancy and coverage by identifying areas of City Hall that did not have coverage. These efforts, including connecting generator power to essential functions and utilizing a second generator that was not currently being used, that was in the basement. Building maintenance continues to take the lead coordinator of maintenance throughout the City of Erie's 26 owned properties, including all the firehouses. On page 61, the Bureau of Parks and Recreation. The Bureau of Parks is responsible for maintaining all the city parks. In 2021, we closed out phase number 2 of the McClellan Park project with a $120,000 reimbursement. Currently, McClellan Park is in the design period for phase 3. Phase 3 will include extended ADA trails, picnic shelters, and a bridge crossing McDaniel Run that will provide access to the northern and southern portion of the park, which is currently dissected by McDaniel Run. We have obtained grant funding in the amount of $190,000 for phase number 3. We also upgraded and replaced playground equipment at 23rd and Holland. We reopened in 2021, we were able to reopen the splash pad at Bayview Park, which was closed for the entire summer season in 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We closed out the 2021 summer recreation program that included basketball, tennis, theater, swimming, and park recreation opportunities for Erie youth throughout the city. We also installed lighting upgrades at Spoons Courts at Bayview Park. Currently, Public Works is working to reorganize City of Erie baseball agreements to provide more open play and access for residents and youth across the City of Erie. We worked with Erie Arts and Culture to display public artwork along East and West 19th Street as part of the Creating with Community project. And if you happen to go across West 19th Street from Chestnut over to Holland, you're going to see some artwork at Ruby Schaaf Park on the fencing. You'll see an art sculpture at the Public Works Complex in 19th and French, along with some other artwork that's displayed on the fencing behind the Municipal Garage Complex. Shade tree on page 63. As part of the shade tree program, Public Works focuses on planting new trees and removing hazardous limbs and trees to protect citizens and property. Currently, there's an active contract in place that will remove 22 dead or hazardous trees throughout the city, and that project will close before the end of the year. On page 73, into the proprietary funds, we begin with the Bureau of Sewers. The Bureau of Sewers contains the City of Erie Wastewater Treatment Plant facility operations and the Sewer Collection Division. The City of Erie's wastewater treatment plant services the residents of the city and 7 outlying tributary communities. Every day, the wastewater treatment plant services 200,000 plus customers and processes over 40 million of wastewater. Over the past 2 years, the Bureau of Sewers has navigated through the pandemic while offering uninterrupted full-scale service and dealing with force majeures related to production shortfalls throughout the industry. There are 5 core cost drivers that are affecting wastewater treatment's operation. The first being chlorine. Since 2013, chlorine costs have increased by 173%. The second, polymer. Since 2013, polymer costs have increased by 70%. Tipping fees. In 2022, tipping fees will increase from $42 to $46 a ton. And fees are scheduled to continue to escalate over the next 3 years. If I can ask Paul, I don't know if you have the numbers in the increase of the tipping fees or the tipping tonnage rates for this year. They went up, this year they've gone up significantly because one of our incinerators at the plant cannot.
$238,000 in 2020. And at this moment in time, we've already spent $377,000.
Right. And the increase, that increase is due to the fact that one of our 2 incinerators can't pass compliance inspection. So we have a deficiency in our cadmium, and we're working to address that and get that back online. But it makes us run that incinerator at a reduced rate and therefore increase the tipping fees. So we have to take that material to the landfall. Ferric chloride. Since 2013, ferric chloride costs have increased by 228%. And as everybody understands, utility costs, gas, water, electric, all have continued to rise. Water alone has increased 25% over the past 5 years. It's important to mention that the wastewater treatment budget is lean and contains no wants or special asks. The process of treating waste hasn't changed. The costs associated with treating waste have increased. Unfortunately, these costs are beyond our scope of control, and we are forced to proactively attempt to deal with them while maintaining compliance. The sewer collection division budget remains static. The main objectives of collections is to continue to provide general maintenance of the system, repair catch basins, manholes, televising block lines, and unclogging sewer pipes. The work and service provided by the Bureau of Sewers is not glamorous, nor is it shiny. It is work that is essential and needed. The team within takes great pride while working day and night to maintain compliance efforts, manage the plant, work within the existing parameters, and produce quality work. The proposed increase will facilitate the operations of the plant, allow for the increasing cost to be accounted for, and maintain the current path of functionality. Yes, sir.
One thing, when we talked about this a couple meetings ago, when Chuck mentioned the 5 core cost drivers, the one you as a group just approved the contract for chlorine last meeting or 2 meetings. Oh, sorry. Last meeting or 2 meetings ago, that was the contract, as Chuck mentioned 2 seconds ago. In the last 8 years, that cost has gone up 173,000 or 173%. But that's also the contract that we could only get the supplier to be firm with us until the end of March. So we have no idea what that's, and let's be honest, it's not going down. We have no idea where that's going to sit come April 1st. So as Chuck said, you know, with there being this is a lean budget and there's no out of the ordinary asks, the cost of running that plant are going up. And I'll say it before we even get to the revenue portion of it. The suburbans are paying their portion of the cost of running the plant.
So Paul, that line item has been increased, right?
Yes,
for
that's
supplies?
the one. Yeah, if you,
4033, is that the right one?
yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Liz, you know, it's quick math, you know, the liquid chlorine, we're figuring it's going to go up about $70,000, and the polymer is going to go up about $50,000, and the ferric chloride is going to go up $80,000. I mean, those things, it's unbelievable, but that's, you know, maybe you and I should open up a polymer factory and we could get rich. But it is what it is. And as you as a group watch, we bid those things out. So it's not like we just call somebody up and say, what do you want to sell this to us? I mean, these are all bid out.
That, I know we talked about the other municipalities in our sewer before.
Mhm.
We always argue about that
That
calculation.
contract,
you do.
yeah,
You say they're paying their
fair share
fair share.
per the
So you're paying
contract.
it per the contract. but
Per the
we
contract.
discussed changing the contract.
Oh, I think we all agree that the contracts,
I mean, we
yeah,
own the
I can-
assets. We talked
yeah.
about increasing the,
I could get up on my soapbox and talk about that for hours. But the fact is, we have the risk of running that plant. I mean, Basil's getting called at 3 a.m. Nobody in Summit or Harbor Creek is getting called if there's a problem at that plant. And there's nothing in any of those contracts that says we should get an extra percentage, 5%, 10% for running the contract. But to get the DEP, the Environmental Protection Agency, Green Township, Harbor Creek, to get everybody to sit down and go, yeah, the city of Erie is not being treated fairly is just,
but these costs are going up.
yes, and we charge them accordingly.
Higher.
Yes, we charge them accordingly. What they pay, and one of the handouts you saw in the budget book is their flow for the first time, the municipalities, their flow, and I don't know what page it's on.
It was always going down.
It's always going down, and actually this year, the percentage of flow here is page 33. Now, again, this is through October, but the flow for the Suburbans is over 50% since back in the 2000s. I only charted 2012, but one of the pages in here shows, some of the older years, I have the numbers, but it's the first time. So their flows are going up, so they're going to pay accordingly.
Is that because of like residential development or?
Liz, it could be.
One of the things I know that at sewer authority meetings, having listened to, say, representative from Harbor Creek, not so much Summit, but Harbor Creek, it's sort of like, well, it's kind of your fault that you don't have Hammer Mill anymore, or, IP to, I'm just
When
saying.
you talk
that
about Harbor, yeah.
They kind of want to come back and say, well, we aren't responsible because the city is not
Yes.
producing. I'm not.
No,
making an argument. I'm
it's
just-
Harbor Creek and Summit, or you went to those meetings for how many
Yeah.
years? Yes, it's those two that complained about that, and that's correct. That Hammer Mill was a big user of our services. They were a big, they were a revenue source. They're gone, but it very well could be, as you asked that question, it could be the residential, the building out in the outlying areas. And it's the first year. So once we get some data from a year, a couple, 3 years, we'll see better. And it could be, the other thing is, it could be, as you look at the water flows, there's a chart that we're going to show you where, our sewer billing for you and I at our houses is based on your water usage. That goes down every year. It's possible the city, I'm just not taking any water into my house, so I'm not putting any sewer down into it's sewage or stormwater that flows through the central city down that way. It's possible that
They're watering their lawns and we aren't, like. you
no,
think?
yeah.
But Paul, what would we have to do? Because I know Jim talks about this a lot, but what would we have to do to renegotiate
Get
it?
them
Or
all to
is
sit down together.
it a open-ended contract?
No,
or-
they're in perpetuity. And we would have to get all the parties together. And we've looked into in my 16 years, I've talked to, when Greg was the solicitor, and talked to Ed about it. The way they read the contracts, we'd have to get everybody to sit down together, everybody to agree to a new contract. And I showed everybody there's a clause, because 25, 30 years ago, we tried strong arming one of the municipalities. And there's a clause in the 93 agreement or the 97 agreement that says absolutely positively, the city of Erie cannot do anything that would look as though it was, can I say acting bad? I don't remember.
Trying to get money, trying to like put the squeeze on them,
Yes,
right?
yeah, I want to use the correct verbiage. We can't go out of our way to say, hey, we're going to shut the gates if you don't pay us more money. Not allowed to do that, because that was proposed back in the 90s. and I'm not gonna say who, where, when, or how, but somebody proposed shutting the gates, and it's not, we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. So if somebody could get everybody to, Harbor Creek, Green Township, Fairview, everyone to sit down, DEP and Environmental Protection Agency, and we could negotiate better contracts. And David, I agree with you. I mean, we run the risk of running that plant. We should
Yeah.
get a little bit,
As-
we should
as-
get
as the-
something
as
for,
the- As the owner,
yes.
as the owner of the asset, I can't believe that we don't have more control.
Somebody, and that was when those contracts were put in place back in the 50s. Michael. Oh, no, I'm done. I'm just off on a tangent right now. But you're all right. I just don't know what, and I've talked to two solicitors,
And I know.
stuttering and stammering.
It's in our operating agreement somewhere, but I still, kind of trying to get over the fact that, we pay for sewer service for the, that we own. And I just don't know where, there's another example where that's applicable, where the owner pays the leasing, to use the system that they own.
There has to be an example somewhere out there, whether it's a cog thing to try to help us in this, or.
Yes,
Exactly.
it would be very helpful. I mean, when I'm sitting down and making, you understand that when I'm preparing the budget and I look at the number, and there's also weirdness as to this whole calculation. And I mean, the worksheet we go through, and Christine's been the one doing it the last few years, and unfortunately she's not here. It's like 40 pages long. And there's things that are divvied up, like when Chuck just talked about the maintenance department. Well, the maintenance department only gets half of the half. We're only allowed to charge of the expenses. We're only allowed to charge half of the half because that's just the way somebody made this calculation up. So the whole thing is.
But the end game on every fee or bill or whatever we have through here, we are taking it to the most potential.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Make sure we're getting.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. So, and I'm
Get
so,
a break that, hey, it's not worth trying to fight for. We're doing our due diligence.
yes, we are based on the contracts that are in place. So I'm sorry I started talking about the chlorine and went off in this tangent, Chuck. My fault. I'll be quiet.
Won't be the first time, Chuck.
I promise it will be.
The next thing I'd like to talk about is the proposed stormwater fund on page 81. And what I'd like to do is break that down so it's a little bit easier for council to understand what we're looking at. I want to give some examples of the operating and capital expenses, repair and maintenance costs, and most importantly, the capital reserve, because currently the way it's listed in the budget, it's all under 4077, $1.328 million. And I think that we broke it down a little bit differently to make it easier to understand what our thoughts are on those funds. So as council is aware, the stormwater fund is a proposed utility as part of the 2022 budget. We have discussed the fund and its intent throughout the study sessions and various weekly Zoom calls. We wanted to highlight the various aspects of the fund. As you can see, there are employees' expenses for an engineer and a field supervisor, along with related employee expenses. This totals $238,713. Below the line, there are the standard expenses. Consumable items are test kits, liquid dyes, monitors, chemical sensors, and tools. Education will include public outreach, which is a required component of our MS4 permit. As I mentioned, the largest account within the stormwater budget is account number 4077. Public Works views this account in 3 separate segments. The first of those segments, operating and capital expenses. Roughly $100,000 annually within this portion will go for needed equipment to purchase along with the needed technology services. Technology will include GIS mapping, line location mapping, and recording and monitoring devices. The second segment, we're going to call repair and maintenance, roughly $500,000 annually. Within this portion, this will go for stream bank restoration projects, outfall rebuildings, inlet conversions, spot repairs, foam and spray linings, relinings and slip linings, and catch basin installations. The largest, and I think probably most misunderstood of the three segments, is the capital reserve. We're estimating roughly $700,000 within this portion. This fund will be able to establish needed reserves to complete total rehabilitation or relining of major portions of the stormwater system. Building reserve is essential to be able to complete large sections of repair to positively affect the system for as many users as possible. If there is a direct or immediate need, these funds can be allocated to an existing or new project. Having this flexibility will enable the City of Erie Department of Public Works to take a proactive approach to sewer and reduce project costs, to sewer maintenance and reduce project costs. So where we'd like to take that $700,000 annually for the next 4 years and build up a reserve if we have a need to spend that on an existing project or a new project, that money will be allocated in that calendar year, fiscal year for those projects. And 100% of this money will stay within the stormwater fund. There'll be no transfer into the general fund.
Question.
Yes.
So you plan to hire 2 persons to help administrate. I just wondered, could you, no one else knew when I asked, so since I have you here, what exactly those jobs would be and what the scope would be?
Yeah, the first position we've already hired. We've hired an engineer to oversee our MS4 program. We eliminated 2 positions. We eliminated a position in the Bureau of Engineering, and we eliminated a position in the Bureau of Streets. And we took those combined salaries and we hired an engineer to oversee our stormwater program. So he will oversee the day-to-day operation of the stormwater. He'll do the BMP inspections. He'll do all the required reporting and make sure that we stay in compliance. The second position we would like to fund is an additional field inspector to help them with those responsibilities. And yes, they both will be paid out of this stormwater fund. They would not be general fund employees.
Don't you think they should be?
I've-
Stormwater fund, why don't we put it into a stormwater fund? That was my question last time we talked.
About the employees, should they be
I'm
general?
saying it's a stormwater fund. It should be in a stormwater bucket,
It is.
not for people and almost 900,000.
Right, all our enterprise funds pay for the employees within that particular fund. So the stormwater fund would include the salaries for the 2 employees. It would be fully funded out of the fee generated by the stormwater fund.
By the fee.
I saw a teaser for Erie News Now, I think is going to do their report on Wednesday night. They actually got to go into the system, right? I mean, at least what I saw from the teaser. So they're going to visually show some of the challenges that we have with the old stormwater system. I think that's what I picked up from the
Yeah, AJ
tease.
and I accompanied Ethan Kibbe from Channel 12. He's doing a 5-minute segment tomorrow on the stormwater fee and the ARP funding. And that's going to air at 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Next, I'd like to talk about the Bureau of Refuse and Recycling on page 83. The year 2021 was a very challenging year for the Bureau of Refuse and Recycling. Coming off challenges that were faced during 2020, the Bureau saw labor shortages, increasing repair and maintenance costs, and continued to deal with an aging fleet and a late season fire that totaled 3 refuse trucks. Labor. In 2021, Public Works increased the part-time labor rate in the Bureau of Refuse. The increase from $10 to $15 was made in an attempt to continue to remain competitive in the labor market. Labor shortages were not localized. You see them all over the country. It's been a national trend. The increase in part-time wages is expected to be permanent, and staffing levels have begun to stabilize. Repair and maintenance. The Bureau of Refuse also saw a dramatic increase in repair and maintenance costs, typically trending around $300,000 to $330,000 annually. Costs are expected to be well over $400,000 in 2021. In 2020, the average annual cost of maintenance on one garbage truck was $20,950. In 2021, the average cost increased to $25,048. These increases can be attributed to aging refuse truck fleets, the effect of the pandemic level of household waste. When people work from home more predominantly in the beginning of 2021, all the waste that was typically disposed of at offices and was then became thrown away at home into the residential refuse stream. The same ideology can be applied to people not going out to eat as much and cooking more at home. So I don't know if Paul has an increase, but I know we saw a significant increase at the beginning of the
Yeah, we have a,
pandemic.
not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. I think go the other way.
Was it, we saw probably a
Keep
20%
going.
increase in the tonnage,
Keep going.
and it
keep
has not
going.
returned to previous.
There it is.
Previous levels.
Here's where, can you make that, just it shows that going from 2015 through now, this is the average tonnage that we're putting. Oh, shoot. It is one, it is in one of the handouts too.
It's back.
Okay, it's back.
It's rising.
Yeah, it's rising. So that,
Right at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw an increase in the amount of household refuse being collected, and we have not seen it decrease yet. Excuse me, fleet and fire. The average age of a City of Erie garbage truck is 10 years old. Typically, this is around the time that where significant mechanical work needs to take place on any of the major components, be it the engine or the transmission. 5 trucks needed to have their engines and transmissions overhauled in 2021. The fleet also suffered from a fire where 3 trucks were totaled. The city was able to locate 2 trucks, 2 replacement trucks from Canada, and we're hoping to get those in service shortly. The paperwork's all in Harrisburg. We're just waiting for them to sign off on the paperwork. Tipping fees. Tipping fees have consistently rose over the past few calendar years. This year, recycling fees went out to bid. In 2021, the City of Erie is paying $125 per ton for recycling fees. In March 2022, recycling tipping fees are increasing to $131 per ton. For a reference point, in 2019, tipping fees for recycling were only $40 per ton. This is over a 300% increase in the tipping fees since 2019.
Why, Chuck?
It's all because of the drop in the market for recyclable materials.
Chinese
China
don't want
didn't
Plastics.
take them anymore.
yeah, remember they were taken off. In fact, when I started 15 years ago, it was $6 a ton. And the stories are going, not stories, if, you know, when Doug Mitchell would talk about when he was working back in the 90s and 2001, 2000, that it was a break even, that we could get rid of the recycling and it was $0 effect. And then $6 for quite a few years, and then it went up, and so now nobody wants it.
Do we know how many, like I keep hearing that, at least on my street, not many people are recycling. Are they putting stuff that could be recycled, even though it went up in cost, into the general trash? I guess what I'm thinking
Some
is,
people do.
you know, can we try and get more people to use the glass recycling stations where you have to transport it yourself? But I mean, can we do some public outreach? You know, I don't know if you just saw, Pittsburgh is actually going to, what are they going to do with plastic bags? Something. I don't know that if we can do that, but Pittsburgh, I think, is going to put a fee on plastic bags. But, you know, you could take your plastic bags, at least for now, over to like Giant Eagle or something. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is recycling, there was always, what do they call it, where it's like aspirational recycling. People were like throwing all the plastics in, then it's like, no, wait a minute, you can only put in number 1 and number 2. I guess I'm just kind of making a plea that for the environment, if we could do some education to get people to take their glass to we have 2 different vendors now for glass, get those plastic bags out of the waste stream. Make sure you're actually throwing the right things and recycling. I think people are ripe and ready to know that they can have a hand in helping this. I don't know.
And I agree with you. There's been some industry changes over the past several years where Waste Management used to collect the blue bags that were blue or opaque. And we have super recyclers that want to feel that everything should be recyclable, and the amount of recycled material has been reduced. So now when we talk about what kind of plastics are recyclable, they're only the plastics with the screw-on lids. And Waste Management made us change from opaque bags to clear bags so they can visually see what's in that bag. And if there's cross-contamination in the bag, if one of the residents threw a pizza box in there because they thought, well, I'm going to recycle this pizza box, our employees are instructed to put that pizza box or that cross-contaminated materials in with the refuse stream. Because if we drop it at the plant and Waste Management notices cross-contamination, they just scrap the whole load. So I think that you're right. There's people out there who want to recycle everything: straws, styrofoam, cardboards, and it's been the materials that have been taken as recyclable materials has been reduced over the years. So I don't know how the IRG plans can affect the local recycling. I believe their business model allows them to take recyclable materials that we don't take in our collection stream. But I will mention a little bit later in this about the glass program. Next, we'll go to the fuel. The Bureau of Refuse uses roughly 65 to 70,000 gallons of fuel a year. The refuse truck goes anywhere from 1.5 miles per gallon to 3 miles per gallon, depending on the route and the season. In 2021, fuel prices have surged. Currently, the city of Erie is paying $2.37 for a gallon of unleaded fuel and $265 for a gallon of diesel. In 2020, a gallon of unleaded fuel was as low as 40 cents, and a gallon of diesel dropped to $1.03. In 2021, refuse is projected to spend approximately $171,000 in fuel. This is up from $112,000 that we spent in 2020. We did have some highlights in refuse and recycling, so that's always good. It's been during 2021, the Bureau of Refuse implemented route optimization to its fleet. We've mentioned this before. Route optimization has been used for the large item pickup program. This technology improvement has increased efficiencies and saved costs. Over 1,200 vehicles utilized the 2 electronics and the 1 tire recycling event during 2021. Recycling events allow citizens an outlet to properly dispose of items and help lessen the detrimental effects of illegal dumping on the city of Erie property and parks. In 2022, the city of Erie is planning on furthering the development of its compost program. In 2021, the city sold close to $8,000 worth of compost, which can be seen under miscellaneous revenues in the revenue side of the refuse and recycling. In 2022, the business model is going to be redefined and the scope of sale is going to increase and generate more revenue. So this is the first time council's asked us for years and years and years, when are you going to have a product that you can sell, you can put it out, we can generate some revenue. This was just one unsolicited local greenhouse that came to us, and we were able to sell $8,000 worth of compost to them. And we're going to try to expand those efforts next year. close to $8,000 worth of compost in 2021. You're welcome. And then we get to the glass through the city's partnership in the pilot program with the Erie Management Group's Prism Recycling. Drop-off locations at city parks have collected nearly 30 tons of glass that would have been thrown away as refuse and would have been paid for at the expense of the city. Currently, the city does not pay to participate in this program. We have a one-year agreement with Prism Glass, at which time we're going to sit down and see if the city wants to continue in that program. But it's been very successful. We have 2 drop-off locations in the city of Erie. Right now, there's one at Glenwood Park on Glenwood Park Avenue, and a second drop-off location is in McClellan Park at the Fabrizio Dog Park. And there's, I think there's a third one. But all those locations are listed on our recycling guide. Page 87, the golf fund. The golf fund continues to have revenues increase. In 2021, the budget was projected at $511,463. Year to date, golf has revenue of $575,894. In 2022, the projected revenues are $573,200.
Just a comment, they're doing a heck of a nice job of keeping Glenwood up.
Thank you.
Real nice job.
Thank you. I think the last one we have to talk about is the liquid fuels fund, and that's on page 90. Just so everyone's aware, the liquid fuels fund is generated from money the state of Pennsylvania receives from the gasoline tax. There's a slight increase in the PA operating grant funding in 2022. In 2021, the city received $2.653 million. In 2022, the city will receive $2.692 million. The main expenses of the liquid fuels fund are costs related to streetlights, traffic signals, and crosswalk signs. Nearly $1.3 million of liquid fuels funds will be spent on these expenses in 2021. Approximately $500,000 of liquid fuels funds will be spent on road maintenance and road resurfacing projects in 2022. We'd like to also highlight that in 2021, the city of Erie expected to generate over $150,000 in miscellaneous revenue from the sales of millings and salts. This is over $100,000 more than was originally budgeted for in 2021. And with that, we'd like to open it up to any questions that any council members might have regarding any of the public works operations or enterprise funds.
That salt thing you mentioned, wasn't that part of the COG? Was that one of the only thing I remember the COG ever accomplishing back in the early 90s?
Yes, well, actually, it's
Still doing it that way?
the salt is under the CoStars program.
Okay.
So the municipal government is able to enter into a state contract with CoStars to get the best pricing. In turn, we provide salt for local organizations that would also be eligible to participate in that program. We turn around, we charge them a administrative fee, a handling fee, and a loading fee. So we generate a slight amount of money on the sales of that. And our biggest customers would be EMTA, Erie Parking Authority, Erie Convention Center, just to name a few.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chuck, for that very awesome report. I want to thank you for your dedication and commitment to the citizens of Erie. I know you've always welcomed me into your office with your wall of all the projects going on in the city of Erie. You've always said if I was ever down, I would be enlightened by all the things that are going on. And you have certainly had a very busy year and you've been proactive. And thank you for all the security that you have put in as well. So just awesome. I'm very pleased. And you're doing this with less employees, correct?
Correct.
That's what amazes me.
Well, thank you very much. And even though you'll be leaving council at the end of the year, our doors are always open for you.
Chuck, I had a couple of questions. One is, this is not me. This is just a neighbor who called me. Well, I have two neighbor questions. One person wondered about the design of the Clockwood Bridge, but it's not even at that stage, right? You're just doing the engineering, correct?
That is correct.
I mean, you wouldn't be designing something.
No, at the last council, at last council meeting, you approved the $403,000 to go ahead with the RFP for the design and the engineering phase.
Okay.
So we're just getting into that project now.
And then I had a raking leaves into the street question from my neighbor. One neighbor texted me today and asked why the neighbor across the street was raking leaves into the street, because I live on a street. This kind of leads to my next question, but I live on a street where there's a lot of on-street parking. So I then saw another neighbor going and dumping leaves in the street. She just moved here. So I felt like the nosy neighbor, but I went out and I said, you know, you really aren't supposed to dump those into the street. And she did take her barrel in the back, but is there anything we can do to let people know? And this is a legitimate concern because there isn't any parking now because one person put all these leaves in the street. Anyhow, I'm just making a plea so I don't have to be like the intermediary between neighbors feuding about leaves in the street. You really aren't supposed to do it because they're going to go into the storm sewer anyhow. But if there's anything you can do, I told the complaining neighbor to call Moss, but
I'll just leave that with Moss Solid then.
okay.
But there is an ordinance that prohibits residents from raking leaves into the streets, and you're correct. It causes quite a few safety issues. You have a potential for fires for cars parking over dry leaves with hot catalytic converters. I have grandchildren. They love to jump in piles of leaves. So you don't know if those leaves are attracting children to play in the street. They affect our storm sewers. They create flooding conditions in heavy rainstorms. Certain neighborhoods take advantage of the fact that there's such a density of large mature trees that street sweepers aren't adequate to do the leaf cleanup. So we send up larger, heavier equipment, and people take advantage of that. And we encourage people to do the right thing and to dispose of them in biodegradable, compostable bags, paper leaf bags, or in hard open containers. And I'll take this opportunity to remind residents that the leaf collection program officially ends on December 8th.
Oh,
this year.
Okay, that's good to know. So this leads to my next question, which I think is more for Renee. I think there is going to be a study, an overall study of parking regs in the city, right?
Yes, actually, Chuck, I'm sure could answer that too, but yes, there is.
Okay,
We're waiting for the MPO to, we have a meeting.
Right,
Next week.
we've applied for funding through the Erie MPO
okay,
to conduct a comprehensive citywide parking study.
thank
We
you.
haven't heard back about that yet.
And I guess my last thing is could you tell us again about the solar powered? I think that's a pretty cool story to tell. I didn't know about that, but I missed what you said, something about safe routes to school.
Yeah, I think
and
it was
solar.
part of the Safe Routes to School grant, which is a $1 million grant. Part of that grant provides solar paneled school flashing zone, school flashers. And you'll see those if you drive over 11th Street between Sassafras and Myrtle. If you come down State Street by Collegiate, you'll see them, and they're solar powered, and they're extremely bright because they have the high efficiency LED lighting in them.
Chuck, you said in December, the leaf collection stopped. How do I convince the trees in my neighborhood to start shaking before that time?
Well, I can't help you with that, but if they're not down, we'll consider extending leaf collection until everybody has an opportunity to dispose of their leaves.
Just for you, especially.
Just for you, Mr. Witherspoon.
I love you, man.
Chuck, I had a couple questions. I know in the past, we've discussed with John Tushek about the LED lighting and about it, lighting the sidewalk in the foot candle of the sidewalk, but it still appeared dimmer. Has there been any due diligence to study that, or did we get through that situation? Because we had replaced some lighting like around the Boston store. We got rid of the original lights and it still seemed dim, even though the sidewalk was lit to the proper foot candle level.
Okay,
Has there been any discussion on that, or?
I'd have to double check with John, but I believe you're referring to the smaller lights, not the.
Yeah.
Not the
And they added like a
but
double head on the corner.
the
There was,
decorative lights.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to follow up with John. I could send you an email on that.
okay. Because I'd hate to invest in all this lighting and have it still, maybe appear to have the proper foot candle at the sidewalk, but still appear dimmer and not really light the area. Because there's kind of two different things. I'm just bringing it up again because we discussed it before.
I know we went through the budget, but I thought this is interesting. We had an agreement with Penelec, and Penelec agreed to go through the 8 opportunity zones and replace all those streetlights with high efficiency LED smart street lighting. So the lighting in the 8 opportunity zones, I believe, are 2,200 streetlights. They're all new. They're much brighter. They're cleaner lights. And Penelec has a street lighting platform where we can monitor in real time the efficiency of the lights. If the light's out, we know when it went out, how long it's been out. We actually have the ability to go onto their platform and to dim or brighten individual lights. Now, right now, we're still paying the tariff rate on those LED lights until the PUC approves a meter. Once the PUC approves a meter, each one of the lights will be on a meter, and we'll be able to see significant reduction in utility costs by dimming and brightening the lights in according with when the sun's come up and
Yeah,
coming down.
great. The also you mentioned the 4th through 12th is getting the streetscape plan. Is that lighting?
Yeah, that's
improvement with
that's a $5.7 rack fee that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. You just finalized all the agreements that will include lighting improvements.
How about from 12th to 18th?
It didn't fit in the downtown streetscape, this particular plan.
Okay. Because I've been advocating for the overpasses for probably 5 years. Is there any discussion on that to light the overpasses since it's so dim? And
I remember you bringing that in. It was really good
Yeah.
project, but I haven't heard anything lately about
because
it.
if there's a lack of lighting, it's definitely the overpasses. If there's a lack anywhere, I know you mentioned parks is replacing lighting also.
Right, all the lighting under the underpasses is owned by Penelec.
Yeah.
So maybe we can make a request to them to increase. the
Because
amount of
that
lighting.
sodium there just looks
It's a-
terrible.
It's a natural disconnect from 14th Street to 16th on State.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way on Sassafras and French. It just breaks that neighborhood into two
Yeah,
because
that's
it's so dark.
Pet peeve line for a while. If there's any attention that could be given to that, I think it'd be an improvement of that area. And I know the businesses have been looking for something for a while.
Where in the budget or how much in the budget do we have for leveling the manhole covers that we own?
We try very carefully every time we do a street improvement program to get those manhole covers as close as possible. I've been in contact with a few citizens who have agreed to provide me with some locations of some that they feel need immediate attention. And we will address those. Some of the manholes belong to the city of Erie. Some we're going to have to work with Verizon or Penelec to get them adjusted. But we're very aware of the complaints that we receive if the manholes aren't adjusted properly. Now, from a public works perspective, Mr. Witherspoon, if that manhole casting is as much as 1/8 of an inch above the existing asphalt surface in the winter, and we hit that with our snow plows, we can do up to $15,000 worth of damage per strike. So we try the very best that we can. We use manhole adjustment rings. We raise and lower the castings by bricks. We have some rubber materials that we can set under the casting. And it's a challenge, and I think that we're getting better at it.
Yeah, I talked with Brian Pagani as well as Mary Beth Smilek at Penelec, and they checked with the engineers. I thought maybe they had a list of their manhole covers, but they don't have a list. But he said that all their manhole covers have their name on them. So if, we run into a problem and their name is on it, if we can have the guys just jot it down and say, hey, 8th and Sass belong to Penelec, then we can begin to create a list ourselves.
Absolutely.
I did have one more question. I think I'm asking this correctly. We have Freda here who's talked a lot about accessibility, and there's a lot of construction that has been going on, which I think is probably a good sign for Erie. But when somebody does construction, do they pay to close down those sidewalks? And if should they or don't they? And what can be done to make those areas accessible for people who, when the sidewalks are closed? And I really, after years on council, I don't know what the answer to that is. So I figured I would take advantage of having Public Works here to ask.
So that's actually a two-part question. So when a contractor's doing work and they request either a lane closure or a sidewalk closure, they contact the City of Erie Department of Engineering, and then they work directly with Ms. Leanne Parmenter on developing a proper plan to ensure pedestrian access and pedestrian safety. So she is actively and constantly, several times daily, working with the contractors downtown to make sure that they're doing what they tell her they're going to do and continue to provide as much access as possible. The second part of your question, do we charge a fee for sidewalk closures or lane closures? Currently, the answer is no. That is something that we're going to be bringing to ordinance, because we feel that if we charge the contractors an appropriate fee, they're going to be less inclined to close the sidewalks, less inclined to close the lanes, and try to get in and out as quickly as possible and be at least disruptive.
I think we sort of thought about it from council from a few years ago. We talked about the dumpsters too, correct? So would that be part of that? I don't know if we were thinking, oh, let's charge individually for dumpsters, but maybe that would be part of it. If you're putting because there really are a lot of them,
It could
on
be,
site.
yeah, currently, the City of Erie does not charge a resident who puts a dumpster in front of their property temporarily. They do, however, have to get a permit from engineering. So we know when the dumpster was placed and how long it's been there, and we could take appropriate actions. Yes, ma'am.
Chuck, I have a question about, you said you took away from the engineering of the streets to do an engineer for the stormwater?
What we did is we realized we had an immediate need for a stormwater engineer. We weren't sure if we were going to, able to get it funded. We're trying to get into stormwater compliance with the DEP. We've been trying to get into compliance for the last several years. We realized that our immediate need was a stormwater compliance engineer. So there was a retirement in the Bureau of Engineering, a survey position. We did not fill that position. There was a position in the Bureau of Streets, a truck driver. We did not fill that position. And we combined the salaries to create this position in the stormwater field.
Thank you for that clarification. How many people are you working short compared to other years?
Well, we're definitely down one in the Bureau of Streets. And over the last several years, through attrition, we've eliminated 5 or 6 positions.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for them?
Do you want to bring up David's chart? Okay. Well, if you remember Mr. Mulvihill last year, they're down 30 people from about within the last 15 years. So it's quite a bit.
I think my last question would be, I should never say last question, but I became very enamored with the GIS systems. I told you when I went to Pennsylvania Municipal League, when I saw how those can be used to map stormwater. So could you just tell us a little bit about the potential for using GIS? I would think in other areas in addition to the stormwater, right? Or
GIS would be a great tool for the city of Erie, but for public works, we could asset management track. We could put our entire fleet, our generators across all of city properties. Buildings have generators, our lift stations have generators, all city of Erie equipment. Now we track them, but through a fleet software. This would give us ability to track them through an asset management program. We could take mapping for stormwater, sewers, our roads. We could put out project timelines, track projects, track calls in about certain areas that are going to be improved or need improved. So GIS, the capabilities are really unlimited potentially.
My dream is what I read about some city doing it, using it for like, it was a city on the Great Lakes somewhere, and using it to be able to like track where the lake effect snow was coming and deploying plows there. So someday in my lifetime, I think that'd be cool. But I remember, Chuck, you talked about just the tracking of the, the refuse trucks a couple of years ago. And I was like, I know they're on the right track here. So.
The fire department's got that GIS system working as far as where the fire hydrants are and all those kind of things. It was like Captain Costello.
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity. There's so many things you can do on that type of platform.
Can't we piggyback on what he has there?
Right, and there are, I believe that some of the ARP funding has been designated, or there's going to be a request to designate some of it for technology upgrades. Right now, what we have to do is continue to improve operational efficiencies, and technology upgrades is really the way for us to get there.
Chuck, I know the county, Erie County Planning has a GIS system. Are we coordinating with them at all, or are we duplicating services at all, or is there any savings to combine with them, or is that being done? I just don't know.
Yeah, currently we're using, they're letting us use their GIS system for our stormwater mapping and a few other platforms.
Great, super. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Chuck,
Oh, after you, sir.
as you know, I have not been a proponent of the stormwater fee. I'm all for stormwater management, and just wondering if we put it off. I know we have the initial 10 million left from ARP funding. How does that set us back if we don't implement the fee, say in 2022 or 2023? I know there may be, there again, maybe some money coming down the road with the infrastructure bill that was passed. Just, and grant you, once again, everybody, I'm not against the stormwater management. I'm just against the fee at this time. If there's a way that does not have to be part of it, 2022 or 2023, is there a way to plan on it more? I mean, are you looking at spending of that 10.1 that we're going to get between this year and next year? Is that already allocated, or is that going to be part of the reserves, the capital reserves? How's it all going to fit in, I guess, is my question, or one of my 5 questions.
Let me see if I can get them all. So the infrastructure bill, really excited about the infrastructure bill. We don't have enough information at this point to see how that's going to affect how that money is going to come into the city of Erie. The ARP funding, we did request $10.5 million from city council to use over the next 4 years. Those funds need to be used over the next 4 years for projects to be completed within the next 4 years. We're hoping to find leverage, to find some kind of leverage to turn that $10.5 million into $30 million. And that's going to, again, have to be spent over the next 4 years on projects. If we don't start building reserve in 2025, we'll have no dedicated funding or no lump sum of money to react to any type of major capital project.
So has there been any more collaboration or talk about regional get together for the stormwater? I mentioned it last week or whenever, that Interstate 79 drops all their water into our treatment plant coming down 79. We have Summit. I think the Mill Creek Mall probably has a whole lot of impervious surface there, which again qualifies for wastewater problems. Why are we as a city the only people that are doing that. Isn't there some way that we can get those people together, sit everybody down and say, hey, we have GIS map, Mill Creek, these are your properties that influence us stormwater wise. Harbor Creek, this is yours, Summit, the casino. I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table by just doing the city of Erie.
Yeah, I think that's something we're gonna have to go back to Wood Consulting and ask them how other communities deal with that. I know that Mill Creek Township is also in the process of developing a similar fee, a stormwater maintenance fee, to address their own MS4 compliance issues. But I will definitely check with Elizabeth Treadway from Wood Consulting. And next time we talk, we'll have a better idea how other communities address that situation. Because I'm sure we're not unique, that you're correct. Some of the runoff from Mill Creek goes through our system, Harbor Creek, Green Township. There's no doubt about it.
You want us to vote on it before we know about it, right?
Well, I think what Kathy Rosnick brought up last week was that we have no authority to charge other municipalities a fee. So that's, if we could investigate that for the future, but there's no way that could happen anytime soon.
I'm sorry.
Well, first I'll address that. But, offline, maybe there's a Virginia compromise here where, we will institute it in 2023, which will allow time for the other ordinances to be constructed about how you'll get your credits and everything before it goes live. So people have an opportunity to prepare and, their properties and present, however, a plan for how they may want to recover those credits.
Are you talking about people, like residential people who might have to pay $36 a year and they need a year to prepare the mitigation?
I'm talking about whoever thinks that they can do something to offset the fee.
You think that they need a year to get ready to mitigate, to reduce a $36 fee? Because you're talking about people versus the tax exempts who would have to pay this fee. I think you need to distinguish. You're talking about residential customers versus everybody else who would also be paying.
So
And you know that
first,
that information is being developed, that the mitigation regulations are being developed, that Meadville passed its ordinance and then approved the mitigation
so
and credit.
I don't think it's necessary to put one before the other. And certain people on this council have a hard line on fees. And so this is one way of striking a balance. So anyways, my next question.
Can I answer that one before you go on to the next one? Is that okay?
Depends on what you're gonna say. No.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
I was
Go
just going
ahead.
to provide some
Yeah.
clarification that the grant that we have through the state expires at the end of this year. There's about $18,000 left in it to pay Wood Consulting to help us with the billing and with developing the credit process and policy. So if we put it off an entire year, right now we're applying for an extension because we know that their work is going to go into January.
Mhm.
They think if we can get this approved at the next meeting, maybe at the December 15th meeting, that they will grant us the extension and we'll be able to get it on the bills for the property tax bills for 2022. Absent that, we don't know if we'll have the extension and we would have to come up with the funding on
With
our
the
own.
$18,000.
You're right.
Okay.
But we're not gonna, I don't think Wood Consulting's gonna stick around for an entire year. I don't know, we'd have to ask them. I mean, we're mid-process. We're mid.
Okay, couple other questions.
How are they going to get paid?
About the the permitting. And so, so we're gonna have a person who's gonna manage the stormwater. And so my question is, one, I know when we were at the study session, Meadville was saying that they also, monitor, people who have direct access, making sure that they're in compliance. Is that going to be a build out of our program, actually monitoring those other people and their discharges into the lake?
Yes, I believe that everybody who discharges directly into the lake also falls under the City of Erie's MS4 permit.
Yes.
So that would be a responsibility of the Bureau of Engineering as part of our MS4 compliance, that we'd have to monitor those outfalls as well.
So as a added responsibility, do you foresee charging the people who have direct access a fee?
I think that our approach would be that we're going to charge everyone a fee because they benefit from the stormwater management as a whole.
Okay. And the other one is we're buying new garage garbage vehicles. So do we have any with the capability that dump, like the little dumpsters, or is there anything that precludes us from entering into the private marketplace as a revenue stream for and competing for contracts like within the city and within the county with our own refuse department?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Paul. I believe that there's a law that prohibits us from competing with private industry.
There is an ordinance that says we can't do that.
Okay.
And also with regard to
How can we do more than we're doing now?
well, that might be a little difficult with regard to the time frame involved in a day of that. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And when AJ managed the garage, we looked at a multitude of different, 5-10 different places over the 5 years you were up there that, could we do work for this organization or that organization? And a lot of times the answer, even though they were a nonprofit or they didn't fall under the right jurisdiction for what we were allowed to do. So yeah, we couldn't go out and say, hey, we're going to compete against Waste Management or Pro or, eat one of those to pick up garbage at apartment buildings or something like that.
And Mr. Keys, I think AJ could probably tell you who our clients are in the municipal garage, but we actively go out and we seek additional clients. Erie County Sheriff's Department,
The parking authority, the water authority.
It's in the book.
The adult probation, juvenile probation, county detectives, our wastewater treatment, sewer collection, refuse department. We do all work for those entities at the garage. We picked up Wesleyville, the Bureau of Wesleyville. We do work for the downtown partnership and Lake City Police Department. We've done work for them. So we actively search out work that we can legally do for municipalities, authorities that we're allowed to. Like Paul said, we've had chances. I mean, Mercyhurst.
Yeah, that was a big one.
They wanted
That
to
was a
send
big one.
their entire fleet operations to us and fill up their vehicles at our gas pumps. And we were disheartened when it was reviewed by legal and it was said that it would be unlawful to do that. And so we were unable to do that, which would have been a large account for us. But like Chuck said, we always are trying to attempt to find new business partners for the municipal garage, because what we do and the cost that we do it for benefits us and produces revenue, and it's really beneficial for the general fund.
and we currently, with our intermunicipal billings agreements, we have agreements with like 15 or 16 townships or boroughs that buy millings from us. And every time we invoice them, we put a flyer in there explaining what we can offer their municipality or borough or township an opportunity to utilize our garage.
Going back to the stormwater management fee, I think one of the things, again, it's the narrative. And you said it best, that we all benefit from this. And if we start saying, well, if you aren't using the system, you don't have to pay. Think about what happens when you roll that out to every other example. I don't have kids in the public school system, so why should I pay for that? I haven't called the fire department. I really don't want to pay for the fire department. You know what? I really don't want to pay for the police. I've never called them. So just roll it out. We got to start thinking about the common good, and our water is a common good that benefits all of us. So that would be one of my other arguments in favor of the stormwater fee. We talked about, and I've mentioned this before, there's opportunity here with green infrastructure. I've mentioned it before when I looked up what Milwaukee County had done with attracting Zern Industries to locate its headquarters there because of an emphasis on green infrastructure and innovating to mitigate the stormwater. It's going to pay off for us. It's going to pay off in terms of the kind of narrative we're shaping about what kind of place Erie is with the green economy or the blue economy. We do things right here. We care about our water and we care about the environment. At least I do. And I know a lot of other people do too, including around this table.
Thank you. Does Mayor Joe have anything to say this evening?
I guess I would just really thank Chuck for the great presentation, and you guys asked really good questions. It was a great conversation. It represents what we want to implement and want your support for. And certainly we'll all be happy to answer any further questions you may have. So thank you very much. And one last thing, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up here with your families.
No joke.
Paul, do you have anything?
No,
to-
I'm good. Please look at the handouts again. I know some of you have called me with questions or sent me emails. Anything you want to know, hopefully we've given you the information, but if not, call. And I'll be in tomorrow. I won't be in Friday, and I will be in Monday.
And can you just remind us of our next meeting is November 30th, next Tuesday.
Mr. President?
As city council people, we have one job, and that job is the budget. If you've been on council and you've not attempted to look at cuts and question cuts, then you're not doing your job. We're going to talk about doing that today. Some people didn't like the idea. Mr. Morosky had to leave, so we don't have our 7 people here. But I repeat, if we don't look closely with all that art money, these guys are, I mean, you're using a buck twice, you're doing a heck of a job. I don't have a problem with that. But there's money there and there's people out there hurting. You know, when I talked about those fees that I don't like, I talked about people on a fixed income, but I got calls too. Even though the mayor doesn't believe I get these calls. The landlord association, they took a big hit during the pandemic where they couldn't, if people weren't paying, they had to do nothing really. Now, if we put, even though it's only $70 or whatever for a fee, those fees are going to go to the poorest people in town, living in homes, probably on the Lower East Side, Lower West Side. They're going to get the fee increase. The landlords aren't going to eat it because they've already been eating for a year. So you want to hurt the little guy, plus my folks that are on a fixed income, go right ahead. I cannot in conscience do that. And I will still, so if Jimmy was here, I'd attempt to put a resolution right now to cut those 2 fees.
And how are you going to make up the revenue? And when you said,
That's their job. Did I ask you?
I would like to comment on this because you said it is city council's job. Can I comment on the budget, Kathy? Because you've been there for 4 years with me. Mel has been there. Remember me with the chart over there, making a list, all those things where we thought we could cut or increase revenue. Have we ever come up with millions in cuts or millions in revenue? But we did ask about the compost, and that's being done. We asked about technology, and that's being done. If you look at some of those line items, there are line items that you mentioned where it's actually lower instead of going up like whatever the cost of living is. So to imply that we have never looked at the budget, that we haven't gone line by this is unfair to those of us who have been on here for 4 years.
I think you were the person who said, we've never made a cut, why did we have budget sessions? That was one of your.
I did say that because I haven't seen, then give me your examples of cuts. You say you don't want those fees. How are you going to make up the revenue? I'm waiting. Is that true, Paul?
Well, what,
How we've done it before is moving stuff around, which got us in the jam that what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up, if we follow that line of thinking, we're going to be right back where we started with having to bring in a consultant to say, this is how you fix your thing. We have taken steps to fix that. My Bible is the PFM report.
I have never said not to increase the funds down the line. I'm saying at least throw the bone out to people. Give them a break for 1 year. I don't care if you have to charge them another $10 or whatever next year. Let them breathe, for Pete's sakes. They're hurting. Mayor?
I can't comment.
Good. Thank you, Kathy.
At this time, we will conclude our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving. May we all have peace, rest, and food in our bellies.
Don't forget, peace and goodwill to all.